you wake in the dark, open your eyes, and find your cat sitting still beside the bed, staring at you like it knows something. That midnight stare feels eerie to many owners, but in most homes, it is not a warning sign at all, just ordinary feline behavior. Cats are naturally most alert during dawn and dusk. So while your body wants deep sleep, your cat may be entering its sharpest waking hours. When the house becomes quiet and still, your cat notices every breath, every shift under blankets, and every tiny sound you make. From your side, it feels like being watched by a silent little ghost. But from your cat's side, it often feels completely normal. A cat does not need a dramatic reason to stare, because staring is one of its easiest ways to observe, predict, and gather information. At night, your sleeping body becomes something unusual to monitor because you are present, familiar, important, and suddenly much less responsive than daytime. That change alone can trigger curiosity, especially in a cat that likes patterns and notices when your usual voice, movement, and attention disappear. Some cats stare because they are waiting for you to wake up, already connecting your first movement with breakfast, affection, or play. If your cat has learned that you eventually respond, even once, midnight watching can become part of a very persistent routine. From the cat's perspective, sitting near the bed is not strange theater. It is strategic waiting beside the person who controls comfort. Many owners accidentally strengthen this habit by reacting immediately, turning over, talking, petting, or getting up the moment the cat appears. To a cat, any response can feel rewarding because attention itself is meaningful, even when it is sleepy, confused, or slightly annoyed. That is why the stare sometimes grows stronger over time, becoming a learned nighttime ritual, instead of a one-time random moment. Hunger is one very common reason behind those eyes in the dark, especially if your cat expects food early each morning. A cat with a strong feeding schedule may wake before dawn, feel ready for the next meal, and begin monitoring you before you even stir. In that moment, the stare is less mysterious than it seems, because your cat may simply be watching for the smallest sign. One hand moving, one foot shifting, or one eyelid opening can mean morning is beginning and breakfast might finally be close. Other cats stare because they are carrying unused energy, especially indoor cats that slept through parts of the evening and wake up ready. While you see midnight as rest, your cat may see it as a possible hunting hour, full of motion, shadows, and opportunity. Your sleeping body can become the nearest interesting event in an otherwise quiet room, so your cat fixes attention on you. Sometimes the stare is a question, not a demand, as if your cat is checking whether this quiet version of you will respond. Cats are excellent observers of body language, and they often study your face, breathing, and posture more closely than owners realize. When you are asleep, your movements become slower, stranger, and less predictable, which can make your cat watch even more carefully. This does not mean your cat is plotting something, only that it is built to notice subtle changes in living bodies. Another layer is safety, because cats often rest near individuals they trust most, especially when the environment feels quiet and vulnerable. In the wild, sleeping is a vulnerable state, and even safe house cats still carry traces of that ancient caution. Watching a sleeping owner can partly reflect that instinct, because your cat knows you are important, but temporarily less aware of surroundings. So the stare may function like a quiet check-in, a way of confirming that its trusted human is still there. Some owners imagine their cat is judging them, but the emotional truth is often softer and more attached than that. For bonded cats, staying nearby during the night can be part comfort, part supervision, and part habit shaped by shared routine. Your cat may not understand sleep the way humans do, but it does understand presence, absence, and changes in responsiveness. When that responsiveness drops, some cats briefly monitor the situation before settling again, almost like verifying that the social world remains stable. That is why the stare can happen without meowing, scratching, or jumping, because observation alone may already satisfy the cat. A quiet cat beside the bed is often not asking for an emergency response, only watching, waiting, or resting. with open eyes. Stillness can make the moment feel more intense, since humans naturally interpret fixed eye contact as emotionally loaded or even threatening. Cats, however, do not always use staring the same way people do, and context changes the meaning completely. A tense, upright body, twitching tail, and flattened ears tell a different story than a relaxed cat calmly sitting nearby. If the body looks loose and settled, the midnight stare is usually far less alarming than your imagination suggests. Light conditions matter too, because cats see well in dim environments and often appear unnervingly focused in darkness. Their eyes catch tiny movements that you barely notice, so they can seem intensely locked onto you without any dramatic intention. Even your breathing pattern can interest them, especially if it changes during dreams, snoring, or turning in bed. To your cat, nighttime is not empty time, and your sleeping body is not an inactive object, but a moving, familiar creature. Sometimes the stare happens because your cat hears something distant and uses your reaction to judge whether the sound matters. Cats often read trusted humans as emotional reference points, especially in uncertain moments when the house feels different than usual. If you stay still, your cat may stay still too, continuing that quiet watch until the sound fades or interest passes. In other cases, the stare carries social closeness, because some cats simply enjoy being near the person they trust most. They may sit at the bed edge, not to disturb you, but to remain inside the circle of shared safety. That behavior can look eerie only because it happens in darkness, silence, and stillness, which naturally amplify human unease. If the same cat sat beside you in daylight, you would probably call it sweet, loyal, or adorably attentive. Night changes the emotional framing, but it does not automatically change the cat's underlying reason for being there. Or some cats also learn that nighttime is when owners are finally still, making it easier to approach without noise or distraction.
Oh,
a busy
not
daytime
again.
home can feel unpredictable, while a sleeping owner feels calm, accessible, and emotionally
Meow.
easier to study. That is
What is it,
especially true for
sweetheart?
shy cats, who
You
prefer
seem
connection
unwell.
when the environment is quiet
Mro?
and human
What's
movement
wrong?
becomes minimal. So the
Something isn't
midnight
right.
stare may sometimes be a cautious form of affection from a cat that loves closeness gently. Of course, not every stare should be ignored, because
Good
context
girl.
still matters
Catch
in
it.
any behavior
Go.
explanation
Get it.
involving
Good job.
animals. If your cat suddenly
Soft
begins intense
purr.
nighttime staring alongside vocalizing, restlessness, confusion, or other unusual changes, health issues deserve consideration. But when the cat otherwise acts normal, eats well, plays, rests, and follows familiar patterns, the
Goodness
stare
me,
is
you look
usually
like you're
behavioral.
starving.
That
Here's a
means
little
the best
snack.
response is not fear, but
There you go,
curiosity
sweetie.
about
Eat up.
routine, energy, timing, and what your cat has learned. A practical starting point is evening play, because many nighttime interruptions come from leftover physical and mental energy. When cats chase, pounce, stalk, and finish a satisfying play session before bed, they often settle more deeply afterward. This helps the body move through a more complete cycle of activation, release, and rest that better matches indoor life. A small meal after evening play can help too, especially for cats that wake owners early because hunger drives anticipation. Food after activity can create a more satisfying end to the night, reducing the urge to monitor you before dawn. Consistency matters more than dramatic fixes, because cats are creatures of repeated patterns, not one-night emotional negotiations. If you react strongly every time the stare appears, your cat may learn that staring is an effective social tool. Even negative attention can still count as interaction, which keeps the behavior alive when the cat wants engagement. That is why calm, predictable routines usually work better than surprised reactions in the middle of the night. Try building a stable sequence. Play, a small meal, quiet settling time, then lights down and minimal responses afterward. Over time, that pattern teaches your cat that nighttime has its own rhythm, and immediate owner engagement is not guaranteed. Environmental support can also help, such as giving your cat cozy sleeping spots, climbing areas, or quiet window access. When a cat has appropriate outlets for watching, resting, and self-soothing, the owner does not remain the only nighttime focus. Still, the goal is not emotional distance, because the stare itself often grows from attachment as much as activity. Your cat watches you partly because you matter, because your presence organizes safety, routine, and many of the best moments. That is why the scene feels intimate as well as unsettling. It reveals how closely your cat tracks your existence. The cat is not only living in your home, but building a map of daily life around you. Every feeding time, bedtime, work return, and quiet cuddle strengthens the link between your movements and your cat's expectations. So when you lie still for hours, your cat may quietly check the center of that map. Seen this way, the midnight stare becomes less about fear and more about relationship, routine, and instinct meeting in darkness. Your cat may be hungry, playful, curious, cautious, comforted, or simply awake while the rest of the room sleeps. And because cats express many motives through the same calm gaze, owners often feel confused by the silence around it. The answer is usually not hidden magic, but layered behavior, body clock, learned habit, emotional attachment, and environmental timing. That layered explanation matters because it keeps owners from overreacting and helps them respond in ways that actually improve life. Instead of labeling the cat strange, they can support the instincts underneath the behavior and reduce unnecessary nighttime disruption. A cat that plays enough, eats appropriately, and follows a steady routine is less likely to turn midnight into social testing. And when the staring does happen, owners can read it with more calm, knowing the moment is usually understandable. The dark room may still feel dramatic, but the psychology behind it is often gentle, practical, and deeply familiar. Your cat is usually not trying to frighten you. It is simply awake, observant, and oriented toward the person it trusts most. Sometimes it wants food, sometimes play, sometimes reassurance, and sometimes it only wants to confirm that its human is still there. So the next time you wake and meet those silent eyes, remember that your cat is often not haunting you. It is watching, waiting, and quietly weaving instinct, habit, and attachment around the sleeping person who feels most like home.